I have one more question.
Yeah.
So it is proven by science that women that have partners who are active and healthy and fit are more likely to have the weight off, keep the weight off.
Yeah.
And it's not only the accountability, even just something as basic, quote unquote, as microbiome and how we, share the same breath and when we're surrounded by healthy people, we are healthy, etc., etc.
Yes.
And so obviously from experience, I know that shaming people into change does not work on myself or others.
Yep.
And what happens when you have a partner that doesn't go to the gym and you just look at other people? I'm super lucky to go. I just went to the gym with Jacob. We did a couples training. This is the best feeling ever. But I remember I didn't have that in the relationship. I remember feeling like I want it, and I would poke my partner and be like, "Come on, you should go to the gym," or please go. I tried the pity, I tried the guilt, I tried the shame, I tried everything. None of this was work. No.
Yeah.
And so how do you get your partner unstuck, right? And how do you get them into get change with you?
Yeah, you don't. No, I'm just kidding. Honestly, you look at the parts of you that...
Hi, my name is Aggie, and this is Biohacking Bestie. The one-stop shop for a modern queen, where you can find biohacking courses, self-growth courses, and where you can find the most incredible community of women so you can hit all of your biohacking goals and beyond. Hi mamas, welcome to another episode of Biohacking Besties. So good to see you. And I always like to think this is not a podcast. This is just you eavesdropping on conversations with some of the greatest minds I am lucky to sometimes call friend, like today, Alyssa Nobriga, who is my dear friend and also a beautiful mind. So just imagine that, this share is for you and you're sitting here with us, having a tea, doing the dishes, walking your dog, whatever it is that you're doing. And just imagine what it's like to just have a deep chat about, things in life and relationships and diets and whatnot. So if you are enjoying this conversation at any point, you're like, wow, that was really profound, make sure to tag Alyssa on Instagram, Biohacking Bestie, or myself at Aggie. Alyssa Nobriga is your handle. Make sure you rate the podcast, share it with a friend, and let's dive right in. Alyssa, thank you for coming. Thank you for everything that you do, actually, for coaching people, for being such a beautiful light on this planet in the most beautiful way. And you have success. I mean, a backstory. If someone had to remember you for one thing, what would that be?
That they are more than enough.
Wow.
That they are inherently worthy is my deepest intention, to help people wake up to that.
How was that journey for you?
Oh, goodness. The thing that we want to share with people is usually our journey. I think most of my life, I had this unconscious filter that I wasn't good enough.
And just so you know, by the way, guys, we're talking to, CEO of an Institute of Coaching Mastery, 2 master's degrees, featured in New York Times, Forbes, So you would be thinking, wow, this woman is crushing it, right? But that's why I don't even like introducing guests by their titles. I want to just how do you want to be remembered?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you don't want to put New York Times or 2 master's degrees on your gravestone. But isn't that funny that usually that you feel like that fulfillment will come from the master's degree, and then you realize actually.
Yeah. I mean, actually, the thing that causes us the most suffering oftentimes becomes the greatest gift.
And so tell me more.
Yeah. So for me, I think most of my life I kept filtering, I'm not successful enough. I'm not X, Y, and Z enough. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I realized I was running away subtly from not facing that feeling. And one day I just stopped and I was like, why don't I just face it? Why don't I just feel it? And I was being a psychotherapist at the time. I wasn't trying to share my work. And Deepak Chopra's community asked to do 2 different sessions filming me so they could see me coach with people. And I said yes, but I was scared shitless. And they were setting up downstairs in my office while I was upstairs in my daughter's room. It's pink wallpaper and I'm laying down just feeling everything because I couldn't run away from not feeling it anymore. And it was the first time in my life where I just stopped and I let myself breathe into the feeling of not good enough. And ironically, by allowing it, I felt my wholeness. The last place I was willing to look, unworthy, actually brought me to feeling worthy.
That's the biggest for the lack of a better word, mindfuck that I have as well. So like I work with my therapist about the very thing that we feel often lonely, crave connection, but it's the connection to yourself.
That's right.
But you're seeking it from your partner,
That's
for
right.
example.
Yeah, and we outsource it because we're taught that through Disney in all the fairy tales that you complete me and I'm not whole and I need you to feel whole or whatever it may be. But ironically, if we feel lonely, we abandon our own loneliness, we look for it from somebody else and we feel even more lonely. Life's a mirror. But when we have the courage to stop to embrace loneliness, it's the greatest connection we could ever have. And then it makes it easier to meet in relationship.
Yeah, and so what I have, life happens like that. It happened 3 times with you already, where I'm just going through something in my personal journey, and then you reflect it back to me, whether it's at a friend's meeting or with a text message. But recently, what I'm going through is just like, fuck, I feel lonely, and what do I think? It's my fiance's fault because he's traveling all the time. So if he spent more time with me, I would feel more connected to him because I feel like I want to connect to him, but in reality, I want to connect to myself.
That's right.
And so that's when I was just like, oh, I feel lonely. And my therapist, so fucking feel lonely. That's the point.
Yeah.
And you feel it and you heal it. And
Yes.
it's actually kind of unbelievable that this has been for the last 3 weeks. I'm like, I love myself. You know, I spent a whole weekend like with myself and I'm like, I don't feel lonely anymore.
That's right.
Because I stopped like searching for other people to fulfill that.
Yeah. And I think that's the greatest gift. And you in what I call insourcing instead of outsourcing your well-being, you
so
insource it.
love
And
it.
then it actually creates more connection with your partner or whomever else is there. So life is a mirror. So if you're starting to really feel those parts of you, because there's the vulnerability underneath the defense. Usually the defense could sound like you're so busy or you're traveling too much. But the real vulnerability underneath, if we have safety and courage to share that in relationship,
Or awareness as well.
that's right, for sure, awareness is to really be with that part and then to say whatever your truth is, to say, I miss you, or because it's not like we're islands. It's okay to have needs. Better to insource first because no person could ever be there for all of our needs all of the time. And if we're speaking from the defense, the protector part underneath the vulnerability, we're going to create disconnect, right? We're going to say,
So
you're
your
busy.
Ego, like, it's all your fault.
Yeah,
You know?
you blame. Of course, that's not going to create the connection we want. So then it's like, okay, in awareness, you're right. And then insourcing, okay, sweetheart, so however you be with that part of you, breathe into it. You can work with it somatically. So when you work with it on a sensation level, drop the story and feel it as a sensation in the body because the story will keep looping you longer. And neuroscientists have found that it takes 90 seconds to feel a sensation and an emotion before it moves through the body. And so if you're feeling it longer, that means you're telling yourself a story about it rather than just feeling it as a sensation.
And I feel like we connect so well over the books that we geek over. But do you know the levels of the subconscious mind?
I don't.
David Hawkins, he talks about like the different
I
levels.
love
of
David Hawkins. Yeah.
So he basically said that it's like you need to feel anger, and then anger transforms into a healthier feeling,
Yes.
and all of that feeling. And he said it's the anger that needs to be expressed, but we feel like, why am I feel angry? I need to have a reason for that to be. So we find a story in our heads of why I feel that angry, and we come up with all these great answers.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's why I feel angry, or that's why I feel this way.
Yeah.
Instead of just like, I feel angry. Doesn't fucking matter why. This is like, just need to feel it.
Yeah.
And just forget about it. But we feel like we have to have a reason.
That's right.
And it's like people always like, but why do you feel that way? You know, and you like sit there and it's like, I wonder. Obviously, self-awareness is great, but also sometimes you just need to like just feel it.
Yeah, we can get stuck in the analysis, right? And really just even underneath anger, so yes to expressing it or feeling it, underneath that is sadness. And so to say yes to that sensation of sadness for 90 seconds as pure energy, it moves through the body. But people, most of us don't learn these things in school, right? We're not growing up learning about doing mindset work, emotional mastery, somatic healing. We don't know any of these things.
Yeah, instead, I don't know what we're learning.
Algebra, you know, and so just helping people understand that sometimes they avoid feeling something because they're scared they're never going to get out. And that's only because you haven't learned to surf the wave. You haven't been given like a surfboard and been taught, okay, if I just feel it as a sensation, not a story, and I breathe into it and I open to it, it actually moves on. So I always invite people to test it, not to trust me, but just to be willing to try it next time it comes up, because all of these feelings and sensations just want to be allowed. And ironically, when we open to them and we allow them, they move through.
100%. We touched on so many incredible things. So again, if you're listening to this, what are you insourcing? Or what can you be insourcing in your life, but you have been outsourcing? Is it the loneliness? Is it the feeling of not being good enough and trying to prove to yourself with 1 million followers or 200,000 followers that you are somebody, that you're important enough, or whatever it might be?
Yeah.
Guilty of that.
Yeah.
And so that's first question. So like ask yourself, maybe leave a note in the comments. Then second questions, like you mentioned the word somatic. And I know in my journey, it was a very confusing word and I didn't know what that meant. And I was too awkward to ask people. So let's just clarify.
Yes.
Because it's like, it sounds
Soma
pretty
means
fancy.
body.
Yeah.
Soma is just body.
Body related.
Yes. So somatic, I got licensed as a somatic clinical psychotherapist. So that just is body-centered psychotherapy, meaning you don't need to know this story to integrate it into your nervous system. You just start to, there's different ways to work with energy. Instead of just on the mental, you can work with it and a bit deeper, more present moment focused. So I love that work. I think it's fantastic. It's a buzzword right now. It's also called embodiment work. And it has its place. It's great for some people at some times, and it can also not be great for others. People that have big T trauma, people that have had a lot to process. It's not necessarily great for coaches to do big T trauma work. You want to work with a licensed psychotherapist or a trained trauma specialist. But for most people, it's a backdoor in because we can know all the things that in terms of having great self-awareness, but not actually changing our life. Yeah. That's the question I'm most interested in. Why is that? And how do we actually help people change in a sustainable way that can be more graceful? Somatic is one door, but there are other doors: mindset, emotional mastery. This is more of the methodology that I teach on.
And I love it on so many levels because, in the book, I say that like stress lives in the body and we often try to fight it with happy thoughts. And sometimes it's great. And sometimes you just have to like move your body and let it leave, like your body keeps the score and like, all the pains and stiffness just comes from that. Second, you mentioned change, and a big part of biohacking is like making that big somatic change to your body, right? Like your body, you're becoming like a different person. And one thing I'm really fighting with is that if you are unfit, if you're looking in your mirror and you're like, I don't really love what I'm seeing, and I know I can be healthier, fitter, stronger, fuller of energy, and like it's not really you're not really lazy. Like I think lazy, it's just like a story.
Yes.
Because we're actually just scared of inaction. Why are we not changing?
Yeah, it's a great question. So 95% of our behavior is through the unconscious, and the body is actually the unconscious. And so you may be saying one thing and your body is saying something different. So oftentimes you want to just close your eyes and tune into what's actually happening in your body in the moment. And you want to get really present. So it's almost like you have a push-pull. 95% of your behavior is because of the programming. That's
the break, so to say.
That's the break, right? Yeah. So it's like, I say I want to lose weight. I say I want to go to the gym, or I want to feel fit or start this new biohacking routine.
But the handbrake is...
But then I'm scared of it. So I've got the foot on the gas and the brakes.
Yeah.
And
so it's like...
it's like this push-pull. Like I want it, but I'm scared of it. And it's unconscious that we're scared of it. And that's 95%. But more of the masculine way is to push harder. You need more willpower. You're lazy, more gas.
Yeah.
But that's not the greatest leverage. You want to really upgrade by doing more of the feminine approach, which we were talking about on my podcast, which is to get out of your own way, to start asking yourself some really profound questions so that you can remove the brakes and then move forward with the masculine. So I'll ground this with a story. I had a woman that came to see me. The doctor said that she was 45 pounds overweight. And she's like, I'm waking up at like 4 a.m. I'm meditating. I go to the gym, but then I fall off. And I said, what do you fear would happen if you lost the weight? She's like, Alyssa, I don't have any fear of losing the weight. I said, okay, humor me, because everything that you're doing thinks that it's helping you in some way. So I said, if you lose the weight you fear, and I helped her get mindful, really tune into her body, and she just started crying. And she's like, I realized that I'm avoiding processing the shame of getting a divorce. And if I lose the weight, then I'll get into a relationship again because I'll be attracted to a man. And so the weight was a protection mechanism. And so rather than trying to push through and be like, you need more willpower, I helped her process and create more protection rather than the weight doing it, so that she could actually move forward with a routine that felt really good for her. But she was using it's like we have to honor and see how all parts of us are serving us. And this is true for weight. This is true for finances. I've coached women who they want to make more than $250,000. I say, what do you fear would happen? They fear they would emasculate their husband, or they'd be making more than their father or their family and they wouldn't be connected. So we want to get out of our own way rather than having this competing desire.
And how many of us consciously realize that, sorry to interrupt, and realize that like, wow, I would rather live small than challenge my husband or father, because I don't know if that would make me a bad person.
And it comes back to belonging. Story. Yeah. It comes back to this basic need of belonging, of feeling loved and accepted. And yet we can insource that belonging. And most people don't know. So we can insource that okayness and still have courageous conversations and still share with the people we love. I care about you and I'm afraid that this is going to hurt you. Or let me actually work with the grief that I felt from my divorce so that I can live my most vibrant, healthy, aligned life.
And it's just so beautiful, because I think awareness is just the most wonderful step, and being able to have a conversation like that, even in a friendship, where you just feel like, so there's a part of me that is so happy that you're doing so well and you're crushing, but there's a part of me that feels like we're no longer going to be friends if you make more money than me, for example.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
And it makes me feel really unworthy, and I don't want you to change, but this is
what I'm processing.
What I'm processing. I just want you to know that I still love you.
Yeah.
And that's you might be, and you can react, you're freaking ridiculous. What are you talking about? And immediately that would invalidate my feeling, right?
That's right.
So how would you react
to
someone's vulnerability? So how do you even start that conversation with a partner? Not to, because it's heart-centered. It's like, it's easy for the person.
I think you modeled it really beautifully, Aggie. I think you taking personal responsibility to say, I have this awareness. It's not about you. This is what I'm going through. And I just want you to know. You're sharing a microscopic experience of what you're processing, but you're not blaming. And I think blame is toxic in any relationship. So the foundation for healthy relationships, number one hack, is personal responsibility, which you just modeled. And so,
so what happens if someone responds with blame, right? Or if it's like, it is your fault, and actually, da.
Yeah, you're gonna end up in defense mechanism and not actually connecting. And I don't think it's a productive conversation. I don't think it's even worth having. It's like, what's the vulnerable truth underneath my defense that I'm not willing to share? And if you are in an intimate relationship, if you are able to have the awareness and have the tools of saying, this is what's coming up for me, this is my responsibility, and can you hold me in that, so that it does make it more successful for your partner to be able to hold space. But if they don't, then I'm a fan of walking away to say, I love you and I need a minute. I'll come back whenever you can. So it doesn't
I thought you meant just like, you're like the queen of making people get divorced.
No.
I'm a fan of walking away. Everybody leave your relationship.
For the moment. Walk away for the moment.
I'm kidding, but that was actually quite funny. That you're like, just like, the amount of couples that got divorced is outstanding. Here are my stats.
Just leave them. Find somebody else. No, you end up projecting the same pattern. It doesn't actually matter who you're with.
So what do they say? Like you end up, if you go to a new relationship, you end up taking yourself with it.
That's right. All of your patterns are going to be projected. You literally attract a partner that will mirror to you everything that's unresolved. It's the perfect puzzle piece. And I'm not if it's an abusive relationship, of course, like get out of that relationship and take care of yourself 100%. And I'm a huge fan of whether they're the right one for right now or the one for you. It's all practice to help you learn to love yourself and heal those parts of you. So even if you leave the person, don't leave the lesson. Don't let the opportunity go not to heal that part of you that was unresolved, because then you're just going to project it and play it out with your next partner, employee, friend. Relationships have a beautiful way of bringing that up for us.
Yeah, it's just like, you left it there. Well, we're going to have a business partner to mirror that back to you. Mm-hmm. How long have you been together with your husband?
We're going on 15 years.
Wow. Yeah. So obviously, speaking from experience, what happens? Was there a moment for either of you that one of you was like, I don't want to say ahead, because it's not a competition or a race, but like at a different stage of their spiritual journey, and the other wasn't quite there?
Yes, that happened in the beginning. And for me, spirituality was really important. I am a big fan of having non-negotiables, not having this large list of perfection and I need to attract a partner that's all of these, because then again, that's outsourcing versus being the one you've been waiting for. But I am a big fan of having like a handful of things that are really important to you in terms of lifestyle, values, non-negotiables.
What are those for you?
I mean, to me, spirituality is a big one. Like having somebody that aligns spiritually. So also personal development growth, somebody that's on the path with me. Now, that may not be for everybody, but it is for me. I love learning and growing, and I will always be investing in myself. I love who I am, and I love my life when I do the work regularly. And it doesn't come from a place that now I used to feel unworthy. And ironically, by embracing that, I feel whole. So it comes from a different place now as I'm older, and I still enjoy my life and my consciousness and the way that I experience the world because of doing the work. So spirituality is a non-negotiable for me. Kindness is a non-negotiable for me, like respect as a foundation, doing personal development work. And those are core. I mean, I'm sure there's a few others, but those are core.
Yeah. So if you're listening, what are your non-negotiables in a relationship? I'm going to just say, for me, it would be curiosity. I think that touches upon personal development, but just like genuinely curious. I'm like, I wonder.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Just having like a deep chat about something that we both may not have much idea about, but just like, you know, question. Adventure and presence.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very sexy.
Yes, it is.
All right, so these are your non-negotiables.
Yeah.
You meet your husband.
Yes.
And you feel like,
And
as women, we're more in tune to that energy anyways, right? Like we're more.
But I met my husband at a master's in spiritual psychology.
Oh.
So he was quite present, and yet I felt him from his heart up. It was like, yes. It was very up energy, and I was very much into non-duality and a deeper, different spirituality, and I wanted to feel him in my feet. I wanted to feel him all the way through.
Ooh, I love that.
And I shared that with him. And I had a coach who was like, you're not the coach in your relationship. You're not the therapist in your relationship. So, but I shared that I wanted to feel all of him. And I think me sharing that and spiritual evolution was the one thing he couldn't give me or meet me at that moment, really motivated and called him forward to really dive deep into the work. I mean, we've done maybe 18 silent retreats together at this point, and it called him forward. And because he's committed to growth spiritually and personally, he really evolved. And when he started evolving and really me feeling him in his feet all the way through with presence, something in me settled. And then I felt ready to be with him in a more committed way.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful, because it's really hard to, what we do, we often fall in love with someone's potential. We feel like, you know, like he's great, but I can see he could be
XYZ.
Yeah, so much more. So we often either fall into the trap of mothering them or coaching them or micromanaging them. And that just kills polarity. So it's really hard to like see someone's potential, feel like, you know, it's not about, I guess, getting to perfection, but more like just the journey itself, like being down to do the journey and just experiment, right?
I think it's toxic to be in relationship with somebody's potential. I think people can feel that, and it's beautiful to see it for them, but to really love them as they are. And then as they feel loved, ironically, as we accept something, then it can change. Ourselves, parts of ourselves, because parts of ourselves and other people defend to the degree they don't feel accepted. And so if we can really accept them exactly as they are, or even our bodies, like even if we want to change our bodies, we can fall in love with the body we have while still changing it.
Which is a very tough concept for people to understand. We had that conversation on your podcast, and I want to kind of help you understand that, you know, big part of the book is like you write a letter to your fat and you celebrate it and you say how much you love your fat. And people, again, there's this fear, if I love my fat, it's going to stay.
That's right. But yet it's not, have we really tested that theory? And is it really efficient? Is it really working? No.
Your fat is still there.
It's still there. And ironically, it's like, if you can ask yourself, like, how has the fat or how has whatever this block that's in my life served me? You'll find an answer. Everything that we're doing thinks that it's helping us.
Oh, 100%.
So we just say thank you. We pull out the intention of how it's been trying to serve us, maybe to protect us. Maybe we had abuse when we were a kid, and so this feels like a protection mechanism, the fat, whatever it may be. We thank that, and then we upgrade the approach. We upgrade to biohacking, to taking care of ourselves, to eating differently as an experiment.
And my biggest thing is like, I want you to biohack, but never from a place of like fixing something.
Yeah.
It's just from a place of curiosity, right?
Yeah.
Of like, why is that? How can I support my body? She's doing so much.
Yeah.
And so I think the big reason why people don't even started their fitness journey is that fear of failure. They have failed so many times, and I can bet my bottom dollar that biohacking is the thing they need. But they're like, oh, like I just don't want to be. I don't want to fail anymore. We have this big fear of failure, and I know this is your specialty.
Yeah, it's a big one for people. Anything we haven't forgiven from the past, we project in the future. And so if we think that we tried a diet before and it didn't work, then we're going to be hesitant to go for it again. If we started a company and it flopped, we're going to be not in our full power to really go for it again. And that's okay. But we want to forgive our past, be compassionate with ourselves. I think people think, oh, if I'm compassionate, then I don't take action.
Or like I'm weak and I will never do anything, right?
Yeah. And I would say test it. I would say, how is it working for you? If it's not working, then are you willing to try something else? And just say, one forgiveness statement that I love, I learned from the University of Santa Monica, sounds like, I forgive myself for buying into the misunderstanding, and then fill in the blank.
You did that on me, and it actually works.
It's very good. It's like, I forgive myself for buying into the misunderstanding that I'm a failure because my goals failed. The truth is, I am not what I do. Who I am is so much bigger than what I do. And that would just be one round. You can do a few of these to really... And like we spoke on my podcast, you absolutely need to express the pain, the frustration, the honest feelings in journaling or speaking or dancing or however you get it out. And then forgiveness is way more sustainable because that's the alchemy. You express it and then you forgive, and then you can move forward with aligned action from there.
All right, so let's just repeat it one more time. I forgive myself.
For buying into the misunderstanding.
Come on, repeat after me.
And then you fill in the blank, whatever your judgment was.
Not giving up on myself too early, and my health, my diet, my fitness.
Yeah. I forgive myself for buying into the I forgive myself for buying the misunderstanding that I should have stayed with the fitness goals. The truth is I'm learning. The truth is I'm not supposed to be perfect. And that's okay to fall off the horse. And what matters is how I am with myself as I keep going.
Yeah. And also there is there's so much misinformation. So just because someone else said it, that this is the diet for you, doesn't mean that was the diet for you.
That's right.
And you forgive yourself for trusting others. And I think for me, every time I trusted a fitness expert, even getting the book ready, I did some stalking of what they're saying. And it's part of me that is like, oh, like, how can this be like mainstream information? But there's a part of me of like, there's no greater lesson for everyone. Like, don't even believe what I'm telling you about biohacking. Just test it.
That's
literally.
Right. Yeah.
Like from a place of curiosity, I'm like, I wonder. There's no like failure. You just want to like, does this work for me?
I love this. And so for one grounded thing people can do is, my experience is compassion is productive. But let's test it. So today, it's like, what happens when I'm compassionate with myself all day, even compassionate with the critic? Because if you're criticizing your critic, it's just another layer of criticism. So as soon as you notice the critic, the inner voice, you can say, oh, thank you for trying to take care of me. And I appreciate you're just trying to protect me. And you still move forward on whatever your biohacking routine is. And just try it for one day. What happens when I'm kind with myself all day and I still move forward?
Yeah. Oh, so beautiful. And so Alyssa was kind enough we were at the party and you did a little training for me that helped me reframe quite a few things. So there's this idea that, when you're doing this work for a little bit, you have very high standards because you feel like, damn, like, I'm an educated, woke person, call it whatever you want. And so there is this tendency to want to spiritually bypass because it feels like I should have known better. And so I was going through a really tough time a couple of weeks ago. And I was just like, I just made a massive mistake, and that was like, it really bothered me. And I was sitting not in a pity party, but in an ability to surrender, to get over it. And then you shared something super beautiful that helped me reframe it. If you can help somebody, what do we do when we feel like we can't fully surrender to the experience that we're having?
So one thing is that you can hold on tighter because you will let go eventually. And what I like, and the other way is just to bring acceptance to the part of you that can't surrender. And then that's okay.
And what did you say to me? That was so beautiful.
I don't remember.
It. Oh, you said, I'm surrender. I'm loving the person, that little Aggie inside of me that doesn't want to surrender. Yeah. And that's okay. I'm surrendering to not surrendering.
That's right.
And I was like, I can surrender to not surrendering.
Exactly.
And then, ta-da.
And then ironically, because, you know, I love this. A lot of this stuff is coming from our ideas of what's right and wrong, especially as women. We are raised to try to be perfect. And so we've got these ideas of right and wrong, but actually that creates more looping and it creates more emotional eating and perpetuating of all these things. And so if you can actually just say yes to whatever is being presented in the moment, resistance, non-surrender, you know, whatever the thoughts are, the sensations, the emotions, that gets you above it. So you're out of it. Because as soon as you're in this right-wrong dynamic, you're caught in it. I should be doing this. I should be eating that. All of this we can get hyper vigilant with ourselves. Like,
Yeah. And then the worst feeling is like, oh, I shouldn't be stressing about this little thing.
I should be stressing about this little thing.
Yeah, but I was like, I kept thinking, I should be over it. Everyone knows it's like, you know, shit happens and da da da. This is what happens when you're in the business. And I just couldn't like surrender to that. And that was the thought that if I was woke, I would be over it was even worse.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I can't get over it. And it makes me even more upset.
That's right. And then we just loop in it.
Yeah.
And thoughts and feelings speak a different dialect. It's like German and Chinese. You can't tell yourself not to think about it or to not feel that way because you still do. And so your willingness to be like, well, I do feel bummed about it. I do feel frustrated. Ironically,
I do feel
puts
bummed
you
that
above it.
my weight is not the way I want it. I feel like maybe I shouldn't be so superficial about my looks, but I look in the mirror and I do feel bummed the way I look, you know? And what would you say to that person looking in the mirror and I feel like I shouldn't be so vain, but I am vain and I don't like the wrinkles and a big belly.
And is that okay for right now? Is that okay for you to not like the way that you look just in this moment? Can that be okay?
Surrender to not surrendering to this, you know. Maybe
That's
it's
right.
okay. You may still not like yourself and that's okay too. You know, that's like for now.
And then you get above it. And so as soon as you get above it, then you're not caught in the dynamic. So Einstein says you can't solve a problem at the same level of thinking that created it. Your saying yes to it actually gives you your power back, gives you choice.
zoom out.
You move above it, and then you can make different changes.
Oh, beautiful. So I have so many questions.
I know,
for
me
you.
too. I have so many things I want to share.
Yeah, we want to talk about emotional eating because I think this is where we become our thoughts and it's really hard to snap out of it.
Yeah, I'll share my journey with emotional eating or stress eating. So my thing was chips. I know sometimes people do sweet or savory. My thing was chips. I don't know if you've noticed, but anytime that emotional stress eating happens, you eat really fast. It's almost like do it so the ego like your presence doesn't wake up, so the ego gets a little quicker with eating quickly. So I noticed that I was looking at food to give me peace. I was looking at carbs to kind of express my emotions. And so I gave myself this one habit that changed emotional eating forever for me after this one thing I did. And I did it for a month. I made it myself a commitment to do it. And so people can try this out.
Amazing. So we're going to cut right now and see you guys in 2 weeks. No, I'm kidding. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
So maybe next time you come, we can talk about it.
Yeah, well, on the next show.
That was it for today. Thanks.
So every time I wanted to emotional eat, I had a practice where I would get a pen and paper and instead of eating in that moment, I would go to journal my feelings for 10 minutes. I wouldn't pick up the paper. And I started just expressing what I was feeling, raw, vulnerable on paper. That's what we were talking about earlier. Express, like I'm frustrated, I can't surrender, whatever the feelings are, get it out. Minimum of 10 minutes. And you don't reread it, you don't relook at it because it's just taking out the trash. So I would do that. And then I would offer myself this compassion process. I would just do 5 rounds at minimum of I forgive myself for buying into the misunderstanding that I shouldn't have eaten those chips. The truth is I did. And this is the best way I've known how to nurture myself. I'm learning something different now. And I would just do a few forgivenesses.
But you would do it before having the chips.
I would do it before having the chips, yes. Or just any judgments about the chips in the past or that it's good or bad if I ate them. So
that's beautiful because it's like it's the story that makes it even more.
You are so wise. That's right. Yes, I'll circle it back. Yes,
okay,
you
sorry.
see it, you get it. So first writing for 10 minutes my emotions, journaling it out. Then the forgiveness, at least 5 rounds. I mean, you can get high on your own supply, so why not? Like just do a few rounds, let yourself really, that's the nourishment. So go for it with the forgiveness. And then my choice at that point was if I wanted to eat the chips, I was going to let myself, but I didn't make it wrong if I did. And if I did want to eat them, I ate them with presence. I slowed down to enjoy those chips. And And if I didn't eat them, I didn't make that good, because that mindset of right, wrong was what was looping me in the pattern of guilt and going back to the emotional overeating. So I found a way to express, instead of carbs, I found a new way to express emotionally that was upgraded while still honoring the intention of moving through this energy through my body, through the journaling and the forgiveness.
Oh, it's so many levels. First of all, the fact that we reach for carbs and sugar, the two things that unconsciously, subconsciously, or even consciously is what we hear about, right? So it's like, it's very, I always say, like, even if you have never been on a diet, you will always get unsolicited advice, because we live in a diet culture where the information is everywhere and the free advice. And so we always go for like something that's a little naughty in a way.
A little rebellious.
Yeah. So that's something that you're not allowed to have. And for women, it is carbs and, sugar. That's one. Second, I really love what you said about journaling. And I think I just want to say from my experience, when I first got into journaling, at 25, with absolute lack of self-awareness, I was such a deep people pleaser when I started The Artist Way. And she said to journal. And I said, I have nothing to journal about. So all I wrote is like, I don't even know how I'm feeling. And I don't even have anything else to say. So I'm just going to write 3 pages about the fact that I have nothing else to say and I have no idea what I'm feeling. All I'm feeling is like having chips, and that's it. And I just kept repeating. So that's also okay to like, and the more you do it, the more you realize, I'm like, oh, I'm noticing this is anger. This is loneliness coming up as well. And feeling like, again, doing something right or wrong or failing, and that fear of failure that you touched upon. And so that's really okay to like not be a psychotherapist and be like, oh, this is 5% grief and 7% this. It's just like, I don't know how I'm feeling.
Matter.
I just feel shit.
That's right.
And that's okay too.
Yes, that's right.
Right. And so that's from my experience of someone who just didn't have the emotional awareness back in the day. And then also like this is so hard with food in general, and biohacking is helping people understand that. I say in the book that there are preferences, they're never rules, because when you say the rule is don't have chips, which biohacking would tell you, like the official biohacking says don't eat processed foods. I know working with women that if I say this is on the no list, what do we want?
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm like, these are preferences. I prefer not to have chips, but I can have chips and nothing's going to happen. I'm going to be alive and perfectly fine. And all of a sudden, it's just like, it's almost like legalizing weed. No one wants it anymore. It's a little bit like that, right? So legalize all of the things that they were on your no list, right?
Yep. I love that, because we've got these rebellious parts. We've telling ourselves what we should and shouldn't do so much that then we want to do the opposite. So the softness around that is so beautiful. I think that's great. Also a parenting hack. So the way that you are being with yourself and that you're sharing with other people is brilliant. And it will also work with kids, because if you say yes or no versus like, I would encourage you to think differently about that, and then let them and have their own autonomy and come to their own answers. They feel more empowered.
It's amazing because you have 3 kids. So clearly give me some more tips.
I think a lot of the times with kids, it's like, you also just want to mirror somebody emotionally. This is true. What's beautiful.
Oh, tell me.
Okay. So I used to be, I specialized working with couples, and I used to say I didn't want to work with kids. And yet I ended up working with kids in my couple sessions, because we all have an inner child that would get triggered and we'd revert back to our 9-year-old undeveloped self.
Oh, that's so funny.
And so, and a lot of men tend to want to, like, stereotypically want to fix it. And so I would always tell my male clients, I would say, your female partner oftentimes just wants to be mirrored emotionally, but the same is true for kids. So instead of
Give me an example. What does mirroring mean?
So to say, I really get that so like, let's just take a kid. So if the kid is going to have their 5th cookie, you might say, I really get you want another cookie. And we can't have that other cookie. It's kind of frustrating, huh? And so you're mirroring what their inner experience is. You're not going to talk to your partner that way, but you are mirroring, and you're also teaching your kids, helping them become self-aware. Oh, I'm feeling frustrated, but you also empathize and you understand me and you see me, and then you give them a choice. It's like, well, given that you've already had 5 cookies, here are some other, would you like to go out in the park and play, or do you want to play play with your crayons? So you're giving them choices so they still have the autonomy. So that would be an example with kids, but with
instead of like, oh, it's wrong to have a cookie, or you're weak, which is how I talk to myself sometimes. It's true, right?
Yeah.
But like reparenting my inner child is learning that it's okay to be weak. But I somehow told the story to myself that if I would succumb to my, guilty pleasures would mean that I'm a weak person.
Yeah. I mean, I think forgiveness is great for that.
Yeah.
It's like I forgive myself for buying the illusion that enjoying something pleasurable every once in a while was weak. No, it's actually decadent and it's allowed or
human.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Do you know the book How to Heal Yourself by Louise Hay?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And so this whole idea is that every disease in your body actually starts from lack of self-forgiveness. And so like if you, whatever you want to heal, you just have to heal with a mantra, but everything stems from lack of self-forgiveness.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful way to live. Oftentimes we don't forgive ourselves because we think we knew better. And we may have known mentally, but it's like watering a plant. There's deeper levels of knowing. So sometimes we know it mentally, but we don't really emotionally get it, or from our gut have a lived way of being. And so again, coming back to compassion is productive. We can test out what happens when maybe I knew from my mind, but I didn't really know, because I wouldn't have done that if I had genuinely integrated that knowing. And I'm learning, and I can be kind with myself as I learn. And ironically, when we're kind with ourselves, we get back up, we get back on the horse, we get back in the game, in the arena.
It's so beautiful. And it's like we just show up for other people differently, because at the end of the day, it's like how you treat yourself is how you treat others. I was walking Peanut, my dog, not too long ago, and on a leash, but the lady it was a stop sign. She didn't really stop, almost hit Peanut. He was like super close. And this is my biggest fear as a dog owner, as you imagine, like as you cross the street. And I'm like, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you can see him. And she's like, oh, he's too slow, because he was behind me. Oh, wow. And she was like, he's too slow. And I'm like, it's a dog. Like, what am I supposed to do? And we just walked over, and I was just like, oh, like that's so frustrating. And so I walk 10 minutes into my walk. This woman pulls over next to me. I'm like, how did she find me? And she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm just having such a shit day. And after what I said to your dog, I felt like, how can I even be upset for an animal for walking too slow? I just want to apologize to you and your dog. And I was like, wow, like she gave herself grace to do that. And obviously she drove around the neighborhood to find us and apologize. But I kind of felt like, oh, get out of the car and give me a hug. So we hugged, and she said hello to Peanut. It's just like that, yes, she did the best she could that moment 10 minutes ago. Yeah. And once it went out, she was like, wow, that was wrong. Yeah. Like, and it doesn't sit well with myself, so I want to make it right, which is also such a beautiful journey.
And I bet because she was being kind with herself, it helped her then repair it in relationship. Because if we're hard on ourselves, then we're going to go into fight flight. We're going to shut down. We're going to be paralyzed. We're stuck in that self-criticism loop. And I'm imagining she was like, I'm having a rough day. And then her giving herself that grace is what probably helped you.
My reaction was like, fuck, she's a better human. I don't think I would drive around the neighborhood to apologize to someone. So immediately it was like, well, I'm going to do better next time. Yeah. Like I felt it forever inspired, and like I had so much love towards her. And I was like, wow, I wonder if I would give myself that much love to even just forgive myself for that.
I remember when I was learning self-forgiveness for the first time, I watched a girlfriend of mine, Lindsay, she was in this master's program, love herself. I got to witness her just be so kind and compassionate to herself. It moved me to my core, and it gave me a blueprint of how I could choose to be loving with myself regardless. And so,
can you give me like a bit of can you picture this for me?
Yeah, so we were doing a trio, which is like, imagine we're sitting in this setup and you're coaching me, and we've got a neutral observer here, and I'm my friend Lindsay, and she's just like, okay, sweetheart, I really hear that was, you were having a moment. I imagine being that woman. I imagine that you were feeling really frustrated in that moment, really anxious. And I totally get that you lashed out. It's okay to be human and lash out. You didn't do anything that's not repairable. She just dropped in to this, even my tone changes. Like there's a very heart-centered way of being. I had such a fierce inner critic at the time. So to hear somebody love themselves, call themselves sweetheart.
That would make me uncomfortable.
And that's okay. For me, I was like, wow, I could offer that to myself, because I used to listen to, back in the day, books on CD, and I would just drown out the inner critic because it was so fierce, telling me all these things of what I should be doing. And, blah, blah, blah. And so I would just drown it out by listening to books on CD when I was driving, because I didn't know another way to see the thoughts, to wake up beyond the mind, to watch them, to observe them rather than getting absorbed by them, let alone change the radio station, right? We're not born with criticism. We're not, that's taught.
Let that sink in, actually, because it's so true.
Yeah. And so being able to, and I, even just the forgiveness process, like I used to just drive around forgiving myself, and I get high. I'm like, wow, this is available. This is mine. This is my own love. I can offer that to myself. And ironically, when I would do that, I felt more fulfilled. I felt happier. I was kinder to others.
I love this so much because there's some special energy in the car.
Yeah.
Like I love driving, obviously in LA, like when you're stuck in traffic, not so much, but it is like you're in a small container that feels safe in a way, and you're on your own and you get to scream, sing, talk, think, it's just like this beautiful, and horizons changing, kind of outside, you can open the windows. So I'm just imagining your neighbors. I was like, oh, Alyssa doing the forgiveness drive, and you're just like in circles of like,
I don't want to go home yet. Let me forgive
I imagine
more.
it's a little bigger than just your street back and forth 20 times. But like, can I steal that from you?
Please run with it. Everybody run with it.
So for example, today driving home from this podcast, I'm going to do a forgiveness drive.
Yeah.
And what would that look like?
It's the same. I forgive myself for buying into the misunderstanding that
I could have been a better host.
that I should have been any different than the way that I was. The truth is, there's no basis in reality other than my mind that tells me I should have been different.
Yeah.
Like, and you do rounds of it. I forgive myself for buying into whatever the judgment, the truth is. And it gives you energy. It's especially helpful after you've done something courageous outside your comfort zone, because the mind wants to pull you back into what's known, thinking that what's known is safe, because the subconscious thinks what's familiar is safe. And so it does this with upper limits, but also lower limits, both, because it has that comfort zone, right? So anytime you do something courageous, you want to just nourish yourself with forgiveness afterwards. Otherwise, you have a courage hangover. The critic gets loud because it wants to pull you back down unconsciously to protect you.
Wow, that would make so much sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I'm going through a lot of upper limits right now. So I'm actively doing all the work.
Ooh, I love it.
To just move through and normalize that it's safe at this new level. And so that can happen with body as well. So people don't yo-yo diet, because a lot of times people yo-yo diet because they haven't looked at the mental and emotional blocks that perpetuate the behavior. And so then forgiveness work could be really beautiful. I forgive myself for buying into the misunderstanding that my body should look any different than the way that it does. The truth is, my body is intelligent and knows exactly what it needs to do to create homeostasis and harmony. Like, you just start to love your body, and you still show up to, move your body or whatever the biohacking things are that you want to do.
So I have one more question.
Yeah.
So it is proven by science that women that have partners who are active and healthy and fit are more likely to have the weight off, keep the weight off.
Yep.
And it's not only the accountability, even just something as basic, quote unquote, as microbiome and how we, share the same breath, and when we're surrounded by healthy people, we are healthy, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
And so obviously, from experience, I know that shaming people into change does not work on myself or others.
Yep.
And what happens when you have a partner that doesn't go to the gym, and you just look at other people? I'm super lucky to go. I just went to the gym with Jacob. We did a couples training. Like, this is the best feeling ever. But I remember I didn't have that in a relationship. I remember feeling like I want it, and I would poke my partner and be like, "Come on, you should go to the gym," or "Please go." I tried the pity, I tried the guilt, I tried the shame, I tried everything. None of this was working. No. Yeah. And so how do you get your partner unstuck, right? And how do you get them into get change with you?
Yeah. You don't. No, I'm just kidding. You look at the parts of you that think you need them to change for you to change. I know that it makes it easier to be in an environment when they do it, but just like we talked about insourcing, because it doesn't work to try to shame them into doing it. Yeah. But when you start working with the part of you that wants them to be different, and you come to peace with that, and you still get an accountability partner, because your partner can't fulfill every need and meet you in every area of your life. Like, it's just not, you have other friends or community to do that. Right? And so be a part of a community, get an accountability partner if your partner is not willing. It may inspire them to join you to the gym after that, but you lead the way. You start first.
It reminds me when I did Date with Destiny with Tony Robbins, and he said like, the number one mistake you do is people come from a really like high webinar and they want to tell everyone like, you have no idea what this experience, you should do it. And you start teaching people that are not excited to do these things. So he basically said, come home and just be happy and just don't say a word.
You live it.
You live it and you just don't say a word. And if they ask, how was the webinar? Oh, that seminar? Yeah, it was great. Actually, it was amazing. Thank you for asking. And he was just like, wait, what? Like that person is not trying to change me. And he said like, it works like magic when you just like are living freaking proof. Look what gym does to me. I have so much energy. I look good. Like, and the number one is like, what is she taking? Like, I want
what they're having.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Alyssa, what's your biggest goal for this year and for your life?
Oh, for this year, I mean, I feel like most of my life I was focused on how do I become really good at what I do? And then it became, after that, I was like, how do I create a program that really changes lives and makes an impact? And now this year, and I've done those things. And now this year, I want to share it in a bigger way. I want to scale it. And so that's what I'm focused on. I feel like that's the way that I feel like I can make the greatest impact and ripple effect, is to help people that want to help others by leading with themselves first, being that example in the world, and then guiding others that feel called to receive support.
Beautiful.
And in life, just to wake up to the truth of who and what I am.
Oh, beautiful.
And live that.
It's so inspiring to like just hang out with you, and we've known each other through mutual friends, but like to see your light in person, and just like I'm absolutely, crashing hard on that your self-love and compassion, and it's truly inspiring to see a woman that is not competitive and is just open, supportive, loving, self-forgiving, and I want to be more of who you are.
Me too. I love that. I love that we get to share, because it's a mutual love affair here, and I love that we get to share with other women and be an inspiration of, we get to rise together, and that doesn't have to be anything other than just a full yes to our expression and service in the world.
And even with I'm so not used to it, I still like get really awkward, because it's like I love collaborating. I found that it's easier for me to collaborate with men. They're usually way more transparent. I have friends who are like, show me your numbers. Like, what can we do better? Like, and I guess with women, you're like one of the very few women in my life that was able to just be like, let me help you. Like, let me show you how I do things. Maybe it resonates for me, it doesn't. And I was like, oh, really? I'm like, thank you. That was like really special and really beautiful. So I want to like reflect it back to you publicly, because I think it's just very rare as of yet, but it's changing.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like when we feel whole and there's less scarcity within our own consciousness, we just want to serve and share and support. And I love what you are up to, and I'm a full fuck yes and full fan, and here to celebrate.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. So what resonated with you the most? Because I feel like there's so many golden nuggets that I feel like you brought so much wisdom. Was it the emotional eating? Was it the insourcing, which is such a perfect word. I'm obsessed. Make sure you leave the comment, tag Alyssa, tag me. Alyssa, where can we find you?
AlyssaNobriga.com.
Perfect. And that's where you can find all the offerings that Alyssa has. I love you so much.
Same, sister.
And yeah, if you haven't, make sure you listen to my interview with Alyssa on her podcast, right? So that's
Healing and Human Potential podcast.
Look it up, and that's like part one of this conversation. I love you so much, guys, and stay healthy and stay beautiful. Mwah. Thank you. You're so good. That was so great.